I'm Avery. The courtroom fell into an absolute hush as the judge's gavel struck the table, the sound echoing like thunder in my ears. This court finds the will valid and binding. All assets of Henry Thompson's estate, including Thompson Enterprises, the Riverview Mansion, vehicles, and accounts, are awarded to Avery Thompson. Effective immediately, Mrs. Thompson is ordered to vacate the property within 7 days. I looked across the room at my stepmother, Olivia. Her face was ashen, and her hands trembled. The woman who had once been so full of arrogance and venom now seemed like a shadow of her former self. The power she'd so desperately clung to was now slipping through her fingers. As I sat there, the weight of the moment settled on me. It was a far cry from the girl who had been tossed out of her home just weeks ago, left with nothing but a few suitcases and a broken heart. My life changed forever when I was 12. My parents died in a tragic plane crash, leaving me an orphan. Henry Thompson, my grandfather, a self-made billionaire and the mastermind behind Thompson Enterprises, a global real estate and tech conglomerate, took me in. He was a man of few words but boundless love. In his sprawling mansion on Riverview Drive, I found a new home. I remember sneaking into his study at night. The air was thick with the smell of old books and the faint aroma of his Cuban cigars. His sleeves would be rolled up, and his gold cufflinks glinted under the soft glow of his desk lamp. He'd be poring over blueprints or financial reports, but he always had time for me. One night, as we played chess, he looked at me with his wise, kind eyes and said, "Avery, the king may be the most important piece on the board, but it's the queen that wields true power. But remember, power without compassion is a curse." Those words were more than just a chess lesson, they were a life lesson. On sunny afternoons, he'd take me to the garden at the back of the mansion. Despite Olivia's protests about getting dirty, we'd plant flowers and vegetables. "The earth is the source of all life, Avery," he'd say. "It teaches us patience, humility, and the value of hard work." To me, those moments were pure magic, but to Olivia, they were a waste of time. Olivia saw my grandfather as nothing more than a ticket to a life of luxury. She married him when I was 16, and from the very beginning, she made it clear that I was an unwelcome guest in my own home. One day, she cornered me in the hallway and sneered, "You're just a burden. Henry only took you in out of pity." I ran to my room and locked the door, sobbing into my pillow. But my grandfather found me. He sat on the edge of my bed and held my hand. "Don't let her words hurt you, Avery. You are a Thompson, and that name means something. You have strength and integrity, and those are far more valuable than anything money can buy." Then, the unthinkable happened. My grandfather passed away after a long battle with cancer. The day of the funeral was cold and gray. As I stood by his grave, grief washed over me like a tidal wave. And then, Olivia leaned in close, her perfume sickly sweet in the cold air. "Avery, don't expect a thing from his will. You're nothing but an outsider." Her words were like a knife in my heart, but I refused to let her see me cry. Just as I was about to walk away, the lawyer, Mr. Harris, spoke up. "Actually, there is one more item left in the will." Olivia's smile vanished, and my heart skipped a beat. What could my grandfather have saved for me? That evening, when I returned to the mansion, I was met with a sight that shattered my world. 3 suitcases, my suitcases, were stacked neatly on the marble steps. The front door creaked open, and there was Olivia, draped in a silk robe, a glass of champagne in her hand. "Oh, good. You're back," she purred. "Saves me the trouble of having someone drop these off at a motel." I stared at her in disbelief. "This is my home, Grandpa wanted me here." She laughed, a cold, cruel laugh. It was his home. Now it's mine. "And you're an intruder." She pulled out a document from the table. "Here's the agreement your precious grandfather signed. Temporary residency for Avery Thompson. Terminated upon his death." I felt as if the ground had opened up beneath my feet. Could my grandfather really have written this? But then I remembered his words, his unwavering belief in me. I took a deep breath and said, "You think you've won, but Grandpa never lost a fight. He won't lose this one either." I dragged my suitcases to my old, beat-up car and drove away, the rain pelting the windshield. I found a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. The room smelled of mildew and cigarettes, and the fluorescent light flickered overhead. I sat on the bed, my head in my hands, and let the sobs come. Just when I thought all was lost, the phone rang. It was Mr. Harris. "Avery, your grandfather left instructions. He thought of everything. Trust me, all is not lost." Those words became my lifeline, the single thread that kept me from falling apart. The day of the will reading arrived. I dressed in my only black suit, my hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. I looked at myself in the cracked mirror and whispered, "Walkin' like you belong." Mr. Harris's office was in a towering glass building, much like the ones my grandfather had built. As I entered, the receptionist greeted me with a warm smile. "Miss Thompson, Mr. Harris is expecting you." In the conference room on the 30th floor, the air was thick with anticipation. Olivia was already there, dressed in a designer suit, her jewelry glinting in the light. She sneered at me as I took my seat at the end of the table. Mr. Harris began to read the will. "To my beloved wife, Olivia Thompson, I leave the Riverview Mansion, including its furnishings and art. I also leave her my vehicles and all joint bank accounts held at Citibank." Olivia's face lit up with a smug smile. She leaned over and whispered, "See, nothing for you." But Mr. Harris wasn't finished. "To my granddaughter, Avery Thompson, who has stood by me with loyalty and love, I leave 50% of Thompson Enterprises, including all voting rights, shares, and dividends." The room fell silent. I felt a rush of blood to my head, and my hands trembled. Olivia jumped to her feet. "This is absurd. She's just a child. She doesn't know anything about running a company." Mr. Harris remained calm. A week later, I stood in the grand foyer of the Riverview Mansion. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns on the marble floor. My suitcase sat by the door, not because I was leaving, but because I was coming home. Olivia passed me on her way out, her head down, her designer luggage in tow. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. But then I remembered all the pain she had caused me, and I knew that she had made her own choices. That night, I went into my grandfather's study. His chair was empty, but the air still carried the faint scent of his cigars. On the desk, there was his gold watch. I picked it up and slipped it onto my wrist. The weight of it felt like his hand on my shoulder, guiding me. As I looked out at the city lights, I knew that I had not only inherited an empire but also a legacy of love, integrity, and compassion. I was ready to carry it forward, just as my grandfather had intended. Family betrayal may cut deep, but love and justice always prevail.